Many years ago, when I left the Marine Corps, I really struggled. I struggled because my identity was so ingrained in being a Marine. And many times I thought about joining back up, but I knew my mental health was not in the right place. And so I had to figure out, who am I outside of the uniform? And who was I when my worth was no longer tied to my performance? And in the beginning, it was a big struggle for me. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. I'm your host, Sergeant Q, and with me today is a special guest. We have Tammy Ward, who was formerly part of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Yes, that's a mouthful. And she's got an incredible story about going from being a high-performing police officer to experiencing some trauma, and then what happened in the aftermath. But that's not where her story ends. She's now continuing the journey by teaching other people about resilience, just like I do. Welcome to the show, Tammy Ward.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you, Tammy. It's good to see you again.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your time in law enforcement, and then, how you exited and what that was like.
Sure. So I served for 24 years with the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, kind of like the US have FBI. We do that, but we also have municipal states. So we police in some of the smaller communities across Canada. And I served for 24 years across Canada. And in 2014, I was a sergeant, and unfortunately, we had an incident that involved a shooting. 3 officers were shot, 3 were fatal, and I ended up, as the operational NCO, took over the team that the men were killed on, and stayed for 4 months. It was my hometown, and I ended up being there, helping with members who were off, coming back, working with people who had never been in this part of the Canada that were showing up to backfill positions. And it was a lot. It was, for everyone, because I live in a smaller province, a smaller place, and basically shit like that doesn't happen here. And then it did. That stuff happens in the big cities. And when you go through training, just like the military, you learn all these things that could potentially happen and how you respond to them. But no one teaches us what to do after it happens. And then you're stuck and you're trying to figure it out. And my role was to take care of everybody else coming back. And unfortunately, to my own detriment, I was so concerned with everybody else that I forgot me. And for 4 months, my healing, and I thought I was being, doing everything right and socially acceptable. Yeah, because I'm not a drinker or any of those things. I don't smoke. So I ran every single day, before, after a shift, sometimes twice a day, but I run to the point of throwing up, or almost, before I'd even turn around and run back. And the other thing that I'm kind of weird about is when I'm stressed, I forget about eating. And unlike 99.9% of police officers, my blood pressure goes down instead of up with stress. So after a 4-month period where the whole world just thought, oh, she's super fit, she's the crazy girl that runs, I had actually lost almost 20 pounds in 4 months. And I'm not real big. I'm 5 foot, almost 3, and I weigh 120 odd pounds. So it was a lot of weight. And my blood pressure kind of bottomed out at 70/43, which meant I wasn't allowed to be at work. And so just going through all of that was kind of the catalyst. And then I lost 2 friends subsequently during that 4-month period to suicide as well. One of which, unfortunately, I responded to as the officer on duty that night. That was really hard, because that was a person I knew quite well. He was a friend that I had worked with, and nobody even asked me after the call if I was okay. It's just like, suck it up, buttercup. This is what you signed up for. And I had about 7 minutes in a car alone to cry before I walked in and pretended I was okay. And then I continued to pretend I was okay until my body, told the truth, basically, that, bitch, you can't do this no more. Like, you hit a wall hard and it's time to slow down. And then I ended up being off for 5 months and rebuilding and, going through what that looked like. And one of the things that I speak a lot about is resilience isn't silence, because I saw so many people suffering silently. So for me, I'm all about brave conversations, because it takes a lot of strength. And that was something I had to learn, was to ask for help and to say, you know what, I'm not okay. I might look like I have my shit together, but honestly, this sack, it's cheesecloth, because, it looks good from the outside, but it's all coming out.
Yeah, Matt, I can really relate to that. It's that compounding trauma. And the great thing about people like you and me, Tammy, is that we're really changing the discussion for the next generation. Because so many of us have been stepping up and speaking out, it's really opening the doors for this next generation to really get the help they need. In the fire departments here locally, this is becoming part of the fire department training in the academy. And then when they get out into the field, they've got older guys like me that are still in fire service or in law enforcement that have been through this and been through the resilient training, and that kind of that old guard that really squashed the emotions like they did to us. Now we're the old guard. We're the ones that are in those positions, and we know how detrimental that was for us. And so we're opening the doors. We're bringing in resources. I do a tremendous amount of work for first responder community, talking about mental health, talking about resilience, giving them tools and training. So I love what you're doing, because it's giving our colleagues the things that we never got.
Exactly. The things to keep us healthier, because too many people, they become shells of who they were. They're high functioning on the job because they just go like a robot. But as soon as you leave that environment, you take off the uniform, what's left but a shell that no longer feels, that no longer communicates with spouses, that have, relationships with children that are pretty much non-existent. Because, I've heard colleagues' kids say, oh yeah, dad comes home from work, takes a beer, goes downstairs and watches TV. That's my dad. Which is really sad, because then there's a whole generation of children growing up with an absent parent. Not that they're a bad person, they just can't people anymore. Like they're just dying.
Yeah, I agree, Tammy. And so for you guys listening in the audience, many of you are not first responders or military, but every one of you has experienced some sort of trauma in your life, whether it's from a bad car accident, being a victim of violence, witnessing something that was traumatic. We've all had that experience, unfortunately. And it doesn't matter how you experience trauma, the end result is always the same. If you don't manage it, if you don't go get help, bad things start to happen, usually very, very rapidly. Now, there's a study that came out that showed if you can go to therapy within the first 6 months of a traumatic event, you have a much faster time recovering. But anything beyond 6 months, that cortisol and adrenaline that causes those PTSD symptoms that coach around the synapses in your brain, it's a lot harder, and it takes a lot more work and energy to remove that from the brain. Think of it like concrete. If you spill concrete on the street, you can go and scoop it up and wash it away pretty easy. But if you let it harden, you can still get it out of the street, but it takes a lot more time and effort. It's the same thing with our brain. And so, Tammy, what is it that you want people to know about this?
Well, one of the things that came to mind when you were speaking about everyone has trauma, I always like to say when I'm not speaking to first responder population is that trauma is not a hierarchy. Your shittiest worst day is your shittiest worst day. If that is your boyfriend broke up with you compared to some of the stuff that you and I have gone through, God bless you that is the worst you've gone through. But it's still your worst day. No one's worst is better, or, there's no hierarchy in trauma. And I think that's a misconception, especially with some people. They're like, well, I really haven't been through that much. I have no right to ask for help. I have no right to feel sad. So I got to suck it up. And that's BS, because whatever you're feeling is legitimate. And we need to be able to talk about it. And I love to tell people that silence is not resilience, because I've seen people stay silent and I've lost those people to suicide. And I've seen families destroyed by silence. I've seen relationships fall apart from silence. And the biggest thing is just be brave and talk to one person you trust. Ask for help. Confide in a spouse. I know some of the things that you and I've seen you would never want to share with a family member. So you share it with a colleague or a professional that you trust, because then you're not traumatizing and bringing that home, but you are sharing it with somebody who has a lens that will understand easier. And you feel that maybe you can share more openly, as opposed to going home and saying, oh, I just had a bad day. No, you had worse than a bad day. And you need to be able to vocalize it. And it's finding that safe space.
Tammy, what you said there is so important for people to understand. So I'm going to add some neuroscience validity to what you just said right there, where you said silence isn't resilience. And so I'm going to break that down on a neurobiological level. When we can there's some studies out of Southern California that when you name the emotion that you're feeling, so when you can name it, you can tell somebody, hey, I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling anxious. Just by being able to name that emotion, just name it to somebody else, it reduces the negative effects by 30%. 30% just by speaking it out loud. 30%. That's an incredible reduction in symptoms just by naming the emotion. So when Tammy says that silence isn't resilience, that's what she means on a neurobiological level. That's what's happening in your brain. Now, there's a whole exercise that I teach where I take through my Giant Slayer program where I teach them being able to name it. It reduces it by 50%. Instead of saying, I feel angry, you change it and you say, a part of me feels angry. Because when you say, I feel angry, the brain interprets that as the whole body in an identity. That's just the way your brain interprets that information. So it takes it on. But if you say, a part of me feels angry, and then you can give me a reason why, because I just got cut off in traffic. Now it tells us why. So the brain's not going to go look for all these other reasons why you're angry. It's just going to focus on that one. And it's going to reduce those symptoms by 50%. So what Tammy's saying here about silence is not resilience, that's the validation of it right there. We see this now in brain scan imagery when they start researching people, when they're talking about trauma. So sorry, Tammy, I just wanted to give that to the audience there, because what you're saying is so true.
Oh, yeah. And I always say that, people see what we do, but nobody knows what we carry. And that applies to everybody, not just people in uniform. I mean, we see business people that are all dressed up and look beautiful, men in nice suits, women in beautiful dresses, whatever. And we think, oh, wow, what a great life. We don't know. Maybe they have a child that's special needs. Maybe they are taking care of parents as well. So we only see a superficial, people thought I was just a super crazy fit girl that ran every day. Nobody knew that the only way I could cope was to run until my body was ready to throw up. That was the only way I was handling my emotion, which I don't recommend for anybody. It was just as unhealthy as the guys who were out drinking at night to quiet the same emotions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Tammy. And what those people need who are dealing with that, and you notice your friends struggling. I have a great colleague, good friend of mine, amazing colleague. And I was trying to do some work with one of his executive staff, but he was never kind of around. So I asked, hey, what's going on with this guy? Oh, his daughter's in the hospital for the last several months. She's going through this treatment. And I don't know all the details. And I was like, hey, what's the guy's address? He's like, I don't know. I've never had to send him anything. I said, well, get me this guy's address, because I want to send him and his family a really nice gift basket, get well soon gift basket. And he kind of was taken aback, like, why would you do that? I said, look, man, you've never sent this guy anything. You should be doing this, because just you being present is a present. Your presence is a present. It is a gift to people. Just knowing that people are thinking about them, caring about them. People are like, oh, what can I do to help? Just be present. It's so powerful. And so I had to share that with one of my colleagues, that somebody who's not in this, I'm just trying to finish a project with this guy that I don't even really know, never even met him in person, but I'm going to do that. Just that present is my presence saying, hey, I see you and I know you're going through a difficult time. And so I was able to teach that to one of my good friends and colleagues just yesterday.
That is huge because so many people, like when I was suffering, I felt that I was the only one. So, like, you feel so alone, you feel ashamed, you feel a fear of maybe bringing it up for being seen as weak, especially in our work world.
Oh, yeah.
So we tend to suck it all up. And so for someone just to reach out and send you a text message that says, hey, I'm thinking about you today. Can I give you a call or can I stop by? Wow, that's huge. I'm not alone anymore. So that breaks that thought that nobody cares. I'm all alone, because when you're in that mind space, you spiral down. And just a text message, somebody sending something over, a phone call, it could literally break that pattern of thought that we have that nobody cares. Why am I here?
You're absolutely right, Tammy. And so here on the Mental Health Janitors, we always do three things here, where we educate, we empower, and we encourage the audience. So educate us. What is the one thing that you could teach us a lot of things. Trust me. I think we've gone over some really cool topics, but what's the one thing that you wanted to share with the audience today? You kind of wanted to teach them and the value you wanted to bring.
The main thing for everybody is that it takes a brave person to ask for help, and that we always think that nobody will understand and you're all alone, but it takes a brave person to speak up and say, I'm not okay, or to ask for help. And so that would be my biggest thing for anybody listening is if you're feeling that way, then speak up and talk to somebody. If you have somebody in your life, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's not, because not everybody has great family relations. Maybe it's a coworker, a longtime friend, or if it's not and you really need somebody, talk to a professional. There's hotlines. If you're a first responder, I know we have lots of stuff. And I've always said, if you find me on LinkedIn and you have nobody else to reach out to, I would be honored if you sent me a message and I will reply. I always make time. If somebody reaches out to me and say, hey, I heard you and I got no one to talk to, I will talk with you because I've been in that spot and I want to be the person that I needed long ago, that I didn't have. And that's a big part of my messaging for people is there are people who give a shit. Sometimes you can't see them.
And you're absolutely right, Tammy. When I tell people that one of the best ways to build mental resilience is to help other people. So if you're the strong one and you never need any help, you never ask for help, you're robbing your friends and family of the ability to strengthen their own mental resilience when you do that. Mm-hmm. That's the truth. The studies prove it. Now, Tammy, you gave us some great advice here, but you also brought us a tool. So you're empowering the audience now. You have a tool that you're going to give them. Tell me a little bit about this.
So it's called a 7-day reset for busy humans. And basically you can,
I need it.
You can print it off. You can just do it online. You can do it 7 days in a row. You could do it over 7 weeks. You do it as you want. But basically there's a prompt. And for example, one of the prompts would be identify something that you're carrying that isn't yours. Don't solve it, just name it.
That's really
It's like
good.
You shared earlier. We are so much on the same page. Just identifying it is a huge step. And if it's not yours, why are you carrying it?
Yes.
And then there's another prompt. And then at nighttime, at the end of the day, there's a prompt. And I always tell people, what is one thing you're grateful for? Or 3 things you're grateful for? Write it down because then it becomes concrete. And then when you're having a super shitty day, you look at your journal and you go back and you're like, oh yeah, I have a roof over my head. I'm better than half the people in this world. I have food at my disposal. Now I'm in the 90 percentile for hell, I have it good. I have a warm bed. I am safe. I am all these things that we forget about, that we take for granted because we live in the US or we live in Canada, that so many people in the world would absolutely take any of those things, like having running water and a fridge. Wow, that would be like a miracle or the epitome of a good life. So I always say, even when you can't think that I don't have anything to be grateful for, I'm like, do you got a house or an apartment? Yeah. Do you got a bed or do you sleep on a floor? Got a bed? Oh, do you have running water? Yeah. Do you have a toothbrush? Does anything feel better than brushing your teeth? No. Hey, there's something to be grateful for.
You're absolutely right. Gratitude changes the way your brain processes new information. So gratitude journals are fantastic. What I used to do is I'd write it on a sticky note and I'd put it on my bathroom mirror, and all these sticky notes. So first thing I saw in the morning and the last thing I saw before I went to bed.
I have one in my bathroom mirror, and it was a card that I had printed, and it says, "You are beautiful, you are powerful, and you are enough." And it's been in my bathroom for I forget how many years. And then I have this card at my desk, and it says, "You have the power to change the world." And that's right here at my desk. So every day, if I have doubts about what I'm doing and my messaging, or nobody hired me this week, I look at that and I'm like, I still have the power to change the world, because you only have to help one person to make a change in this world.
I was just going to qualify your statement right there, Tammy. Exactly. You're like, how am I going to change the world? You can change the world for one person, and you can do that every single day. And that will change the world.
Exactly.
So yeah, so Tammy, if people wanted to work with you, what would that look like? What's their first step?
Well, they can connect with me either through my website or through LinkedIn. Just send me a message, tell me what you're looking for, and then we go from there. If it's coaching, etc., we have a conversation.
That's fantastic, Tammy. So here's the thing, guys. All of those are going to be in the show notes, the LinkedIn, the website, all of that stuff's going to be there for you guys to click and connect with Tammy. Now, I know that you also do some other stuff. You do a lot of keynote speaking. So if you guys are leaders of organizations or you bring in keynotes, she does a fantastic keynote. And I remember you telling me that you're going to be putting a book out coming soon.
Yes, I have a story in a compilation that's been published. And I am hopefully this fall having the full book come out, called The Unseen Scar, because so many of us, as we talked about, have scars that are absolutely invisible to the outside world.
Wonderful. So here you go, Tammy. When you get ready to launch that book, let me know. I want to get you back on the show pre-launch. So just a few weeks before you actually launch the book, I'd love to get you back on here, and we can talk about the book. People could pre-order it and get into the funnel that way. That'd be fantastic.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, in the Mental Health Janitors, we like to do 3 things. We want to educate, empower, and encourage you on your mental health journey. So for the Mental Health Janitors, I'm Sergeant Q, and I'm out.